It was a crisp fall day when it all began, the day that changed everything for me. At 23, I thought I had my life under control. College was behind me, I had a solid job, and I was surrounded by friends who loved and supported me. I had everything I needed, or at least, that's what I told myself. But there was something deeper inside me, something I had buried for years, that was about to come to the surface. Her name was Laura, and we met in college. We weren't inseparable at first, our friendship developed slowly, a shared love for books, music, and long walks through campus. She was the kind of person who would brighten a room without even trying, and I admired that about her. She had this warmth that drew people in, and it didn't take long before I realized that I wanted to be around her more and more. But as time went on, something shifted. What had started as a casual friendship became something I couldn't control, something that took root in my heart before I even realized it. I developed feelings for Laura, feelings I never expected to have, especially since we were both women. It wasn't just an attraction, it was an emotional connection, a bond that I had never experienced before. At first, I tried to ignore it. I told myself that I was just confused, that maybe it was just admiration for a good friend. But the more time I spent with her, the more I realized that it was so much more than that. Every moment with Laura felt like a discovery, and every time she smiled, my heart would flutter in a way I couldn't explain. I found myself thinking about her all the time, at work, during the quiet moments at home, and even when I was with other friends. It was like she had a hold on me, and the more I resisted, the more I realized I couldn't stop thinking about her. Laura didn't know. I kept my feelings hidden, buried deep within myself, because I feared the consequences of telling her. What if she didn't feel the same? What if it ruined our friendship? I couldn't risk it. We were too close, and the thought of losing her was too much to bear. So, I kept quiet. I watched her with her boyfriends, smiled when she confided in me about her relationships, and tried to ignore the ache in my chest. But the more I suppressed my feelings, the more intense they became. I started to notice things, small gestures, fleeting moments, that I had never paid attention to before. When we hugged, it felt different, more electric. When she laughed, I felt a pang of longing that was hard to ignore. She was always so affectionate, but was it just her personality, or was there something more to it? Every word she spoke seemed to carry an unspoken meaning, and every look she gave me felt like it held a secret. One night, things changed. We were at a party, surrounded by friends, but I couldn't focus on anything except Laura. She looked beautiful, as she always did, and I was overwhelmed by the desire to tell her how I felt. I was drunk, not enough to lose control, but enough to feel brave. I pulled her aside and asked if we could talk. She agreed, and we went to a quieter spot in the back of the house. I had no idea what I was going to say. The words felt like they were stuck in my throat, but I couldn't hold it in any longer. I had to tell her how I felt. It wasn't fair to either of us to keep pretending that everything was fine when, inside, I was falling apart. The pressure had built up for so long that I could feel my heart pounding in my chest. Laura, I need to tell you something, I began, my voice trembling. I don't know how to say this, but I think I'm in love with you. There, I said it. The words hung in the air between us, and for a long moment, Laura said nothing. She just looked at me, her eyes wide and confused, and I could see her processing the weight of what I had just confessed. My heart was in my throat, and I braced myself for rejection. She took a step back, and I saw the uncertainty in her eyes. I don't know what to say, she whispered. I care about you, but I don't feel the same way. In that moment, I felt the earth beneath me shift. The pain was so sharp, so immediate, that it felt like a physical blow. I could see her confusion, her hesitation, and it hit me harder than I ever thought possible. She didn't love me the way I loved her, and I knew that I could never change that. The days that followed were some of the darkest I've ever experienced. I couldn't face her, I couldn't look at her without feeling like I had betrayed her in some way. Our friendship was never the same after that night. The laughter that once filled our conversations was replaced by awkward silences, and the closeness we shared seemed to fade. I tried to act normal, to pretend like everything was fine, but I could tell that Laura was pulling away. She didn't say it, but I could feel the distance between us growing with each passing day. I tried to move on, to distract myself by focusing on my job and my other friendships, but nothing worked. Laura was always in my thoughts, always lingering in the background. I couldn't shake the memory of her smile, the sound of her voice, the warmth of her touch. I missed her, not just as a friend, but as the person who had become the center of my world. I knew I couldn't go on like this. Something had to change. I needed closure, but the more I tried to confront my feelings, the more I realized that the relationship I wanted with Laura could never happen. She had never felt the same way about me. It was a harsh reality, but one I had to accept. And accepting it meant learning to let go, even though I wasn't ready. It took time, months in fact, for me to fully heal. There were days when I wanted to reach out to Laura, to tell her how much I missed her, but I knew it wouldn't change anything. I had to let go of the idea that our relationship could be something more than what it was. I had to learn to love myself again, to rediscover who I was outside of my feelings for her. During this time, I found comfort in my hobbies and my personal growth. I joined a yoga class, spent more time with family, and began to journal my feelings. Writing became a way for me to process everything that had happened, and it helped me understand that sometimes, we can love someone deeply without them loving us back. And that's okay. Love doesn't have to be reciprocated to be real. My feelings for Laura were genuine, but they didn't define me. I was more than my unrequited love. The room felt unnaturally quiet as Laura and I sat there, our hands gently clasped together, both unsure of what to say next. Her confession had hit me hard, and though I understood her reasoning, I couldn't deny the ache that had spread through my chest. The truth was no longer something I could ignore, but it didn't make it any easier to accept. "I've always cared about you, Sarah," Laura said softly, breaking the silence. "But things got complicated. And I didn't know how to deal with it. I thought I could keep my feelings hidden from you, but every time I saw you, I felt guilty. And then I felt trapped. How could I tell you that I was developing feelings for someone else, especially when I knew how much you cared about me?" I nodded, understanding the predicament she had been in. She had been stuck between two worlds, each one pulling her in a different direction. I didn't blame her for not telling me sooner. This was a painful situation for both of us. And as much as it hurt to hear the truth, I appreciated her honesty. I had spent so many sleepless nights wondering what had gone wrong, why our connection had faltered, and now I had the answers. But with those answers came more questions. "Laura," I began, trying to steady my voice, I don't know how to move forward from this. I'm so glad you told me the truth, but I'm also heartbroken. I never wanted to hurt you or have things between us turn into this mess." Laura squeezed my hand, her eyes brimming with unshed tears. "I never wanted this either. I know I've hurt you, and I hate myself for it. But the last thing I want is for you to feel like I'm pushing you away forever. I need to figure out what this means for us, if there's a way for us to stay in each other's lives, even if it's different." Her words hung in the air, offering a glimmer of hope that maybe, just maybe, there could be a future where we could salvage some kind of friendship from the wreckage. But I wasn't sure. The wound was too fresh, and the betrayal, though unintentional, stung too deeply. Could we really go back to what we were before? The thought of her with Jake, of her sharing the things I had wanted to share with her, laughing in ways that had once been mine to experience with her, made my stomach churn. Could I ever look at her the same way again? I pulled my hand away slowly, retreating into myself as the weight of everything settled over me like a heavy blanket. "I don't know, Laura. I don't know if I can just let this go. I don't know if I can be the friend you want me to be." She nodded, her face a mixture of sadness and understanding. "I get it, Sarah. I do, and I'm so sorry. I never wanted to hurt you. If you need space, I'll give it to you. I just don't want to lose you completely. You mean so much to me." The silence stretched between us, thick and suffocating, as we both sat with our emotions, mine, full of betrayal and confusion, and hers, weighed down by guilt and regret. The truth had come out, but it hadn't solved anything. In fact, it had only made everything more complicated. Days turned into weeks, and though Laura and I occasionally exchanged brief messages, the distance between us remained. The conversation we had shared that night had altered the dynamic of our friendship, and the reality was that I needed time to process everything I had learned, to sort through my emotions, and to decide whether I could ever trust her in the same way again. It wasn't easy. Every time I saw Laura's name pop up on my phone, I hesitated. I longed to reach out, to reconnect, to make things right, but every time I thought about it, a knot formed in my stomach. Could I ever look at her and not think about Jake? Could I ever share the same closeness with her when everything felt so different? It wasn't just about her feelings for Jake, it was about the way I had placed so much of my own emotional stability in her. I had relied on her in ways that had become almost suffocating, and now, I was left feeling hollow. What had I been so afraid of? Why hadn't I told her the truth about how I felt? If I had just been open with her, if I hadn't hidden behind my fear of rejection, maybe things would be different. Maybe things wouldn't have fallen apart. But then, one evening, I received a message that caught me off guard. It wasn't from Laura, but from Jake. His message read simply, "Sarah, I know you probably don't want to hear from me, but I think we need to talk." I stared at the message, a mix of confusion and anger rising within me. Why was Jake reaching out to me now? After everything that had happened, after the secrets and the unspoken feelings between us, why was he trying to insert himself into my life again? For a moment, I considered ignoring it. I didn't owe him anything. But then the curiosity won over, and I found myself typing a response. "What do you want to talk about?" The reply came swiftly. "I think you deserve to know the full story. There are things Laura never told you, and I think it's time you heard the truth." My heart began to race. What did he mean? What could Laura have possibly kept from me that was so important? I didn't know if I was ready for another bombshell, but the words, "the full story," haunted me. I hesitated, then decided to meet with him the next day. When I met Jake the next afternoon, I was a bundle of nerves, unsure of what to expect. He was sitting at a coffee shop, looking just as uncomfortable as I felt. There was something in his eyes, something unspoken, a weight he was carrying, and it made me nervous. "Sarah," Jake began, his voice lower than usual. "I think you deserve to know what's really been going on with Laura and me. It's not what you think." I waited for him to continue, the anticipation building inside me. "What do you mean?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Jake sighed, looking around the room before meeting my gaze. "Laura and I. Yeah, we've been seeing each other. But there's more to it than that. Before she ever kissed you that night, I was already falling for her. And when you confessed your feelings to her, it pushed her away. She was already confused about her feelings for you and me, but when you told her, it made everything harder." I sat there, stunned, my mind racing. Laura had already known about my feelings long before I confessed to her. She hadn't been keeping Jake a secret just out of shame, she had been carrying this emotional burden for months, unsure of how to navigate both of our feelings. Jake continued, "I don't want to be the bad guy here, Sarah, but I need you to understand that Laura's been struggling with this. She didn't want to hurt you, and I think she made some choices that she regrets." The truth hit me harder than anything else. Laura hadn't just been avoiding me. She had been trying to protect me from something that was beyond her control. But instead of confronting it directly, she had kept everything bottled up, and that's what ultimately pushed us both apart. I left the coffee shop feeling torn. The truth had set me free, but it had also complicated everything. I understood now that Laura had been trying to protect me, but in doing so, she had hurt me more than she realized. She had kept secrets not because she wanted to, but because she didn't know how to handle the emotions of two people she cared about deeply. I felt a sense of compassion for her, but I also knew that things could never go back to the way they were. As I walked through the park, the cool breeze brushing against my face, I realized something important. I had to let go of the past. The pain of betrayal would never fully disappear, but I didn't have to let it define me. It was time to focus on myself, time to heal, to move on, and to embrace the future that was waiting for me, with or without Laura. I knew that it was going to take time. Healing never happens overnight, but for the first time in months, I felt like I had the power to move forward. The weight I had been carrying was finally lifting, and I knew that I could start rebuilding myself. And with that, I made a decision. I wasn't going to be a victim to this anymore. I wasn't going to let love ruin me. I had learned my lesson, and now, it was time to take control of my life. As I walked through the park, the weight on my shoulders lightened with each step. The crisp autumn air carried a sense of renewal, a signal that life was moving forward, whether I was ready or not. It felt like the first step toward reclaiming my life, rebuilding the pieces that had been shattered by love, by secrets, and by the fear of facing the truth. For so long, I had believed that love was supposed to make you feel complete, that love should never cause pain. But now I understood that love, while beautiful, isn't always simple or easy. Sometimes, love is messy. It forces you to confront the things you've been avoiding, the things you're too scared to face. And sometimes, love teaches you the hardest lesson of all: you can love someone without them loving you back. You can give all of yourself to someone, and still, it may not be enough. In the end, it wasn't just about Laura. It was about me, my own emotional growth, my ability to recognize my worth, and my willingness to move forward even when the road ahead seemed unclear. I had spent so much of my life trying to please others, trying to fit into molds that weren't meant for me. I had tried to be the perfect friend, the perfect partner, but in doing so, I had lost sight of who I truly was. I had let my worth be determined by others, by their affection, their opinions, their approval, and I had forgotten that my value was inherent, not reliant on anyone else. That was the first lesson I learned. You cannot build your life around someone else's feelings, choices, or expectations. You have to build your life around your own sense of self-worth. You have to know who you are and embrace that, regardless of whether anyone else sees it or not. The path to healing wasn't about waiting for someone to fix things, it was about fixing myself. But there was something even more profound that I learned during this experience. Forgiveness is not about the other person, it's about you. When I forgave Laura, when I forgave myself for the mistakes I made, I was freeing myself from the burden of anger, resentment, and regret. I was choosing to let go of the past so I could live in the present. Forgiveness wasn't about condoning what happened, it was about giving myself the peace I deserved. The second lesson was that closure doesn't come from other people, it comes from within. I thought I needed Laura to provide closure, to explain everything, to make it right. But in reality, the closure I needed was in my own heart. It wasn't about receiving an apology or a promise to make things better, it was about accepting what happened, learning from it, and moving forward. The third lesson, and one that has stayed with me, is that healing is a process, not an event. Healing doesn't happen overnight. You don't wake up one day and suddenly feel better. It's messy, it's painful, and it takes time. Some days, you'll feel like you're making progress, and other days, you'll feel like you're taking 2 steps back. But every day that you continue moving forward, even when it feels hard, is a victory. Healing requires patience, self-compassion, and a willingness to face the parts of yourself that hurt the most. Blank, _ blank. The aftermath. Blank, _ blank. A few months after the revelation, things began to settle into a new rhythm. Laura and I still didn't speak much, but we shared occasional messages of support. The distance between us was not just physical, it was emotional. I had accepted that we would never return to what we once were. Our friendship, at least in the form it had existed before, was over. But that didn't mean it was the end of our connection. We were both moving forward, learning, growing, and living. I eventually ran into Jake at a mutual friends gathering. He apologized for getting involved in the situation and expressed his regret for not handling things better. It was a difficult conversation, but I realized that I wasn't angry anymore. I had forgiven him, not for his sake, but for my own. I no longer wanted to carry the weight of bitterness. The truth had come out, and that was enough. And, most importantly, I had started to rebuild my own life. I reconnected with myself, rediscovered old passions, and made new plans. I focused on my career, I rekindled friendships with people who genuinely valued me, and I spent more time doing the things I loved. Slowly but surely, I began to feel whole again. I didn't need anyone else's love or approval to feel complete. I was enough on my own. Blank, _ blank. The final lesson. Blank, _ blank. As time passed, I came to understand that love isn't always about perfection or fairy tale endings. Sometimes, love teaches you who you are, who you want to become, and what you truly need. The love I felt for Laura, even though it wasn't reciprocated in the way I had hoped, was real. It was a love that changed me, forced me to grow, and made me stronger. I realized that sometimes the love that breaks you is the love that builds you up, too. It's the love that pushes you to confront your fears, your insecurities, and your own limitations. It's the love that makes you realize how capable you are of surviving even the hardest of circumstances. And in the end, love is not about what happens between two people, it's about what happens inside of you. So, to anyone out there who's experiencing unrequited love, heartbreak, or emotional pain, know that you are not alone. Healing takes time, but it is possible. You will come out of this stronger, wiser, and more in touch with the person you are meant to be. The journey isn't easy, but it's worth it. You are worthy of love, respect, and happiness. Don't ever forget that. ___. Outro. Thank you for listening to Listen Today 2.1. I hope this confession has resonated with you and offered some insight into the complex emotions we all face when love doesn't turn out the way we expect. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more emotional confessions and life-changing stories. Join us next time as we explore more of the human experience, love, loss, and everything in between. Until then, remember, you are enough, and you have the power to heal. Stay tuned, and keep listening to Listen Today 2.1.